She opened her purse, and I saw her hand hesitate, just for a moment. Her perfectly manicured fingers brushed the velvet pouch, and I knew the exact second she felt it. She froze. She didn't pull it out right away. No. First came the confusion, then the denial, then the flicker of realization in her eyes, the kind that starts behind the smile and dies on the lips. She looked around. The music kept playing. Her co-workers were mid-toast. That smug golden boy, Weston, was halfway through his speech, saying something about pushing boundaries. Champagne sparkled. Laughter echoed off marble. No one noticed the color draining from her face. Except me. I wasn't supposed to be there. She made that clear when she said, "It's an exclusive corporate thing, Norwood, just execs and core staff." I said, "Okay." I always say okay. But when I saw the invitation peeking out from the trash that morning, the one with both our names printed on it, I realized she wasn't just leaving me out of the event. She was leaving me out of the narrative entirely. So I did something I've never done in the 12 years of our marriage. I interfered. I parked 3 blocks away, wore a blazer she'd never seen, walked past security like I belonged. I even smiled at Weston. He didn't recognize me, which made sense, considering she never mentioned she had a husband. Apparently, I'm just a shadow in her origin story now. I didn't speak to anyone, didn't cause a scene. I just slipped my wedding ring, the one she stopped asking about months ago, into her clutch when she wasn't looking. Right next to the lipstick, she said she only wore for important meetings. And the note, folded twice, tucked beneath the ring. "Congratulations. You finally made it. I won't be waiting when you come home." And now, watching her expression melt under the weight of what she just found, that was the first time in years I felt like a person again. She was unraveling in slow motion, and I wasn't done yet. She slid the note and the ring deeper into her clutch like they didn't exist, like no one saw. But I saw. I watched her from across the room as her jaw clenched ever so slightly, the way it always did when she was about to lie. I knew her micro-expressions better than she did. And right now, her body was screaming betrayal. She kept glancing around the room. Her drink remained untouched in her hand. Weston finished his self-congratulatory speech, and people clapped as if he'd just cured something incurable. She forced a smile. One of those strained, brittle ones, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. She even nodded and laughed when someone tapped her shoulder and complimented her earrings. But the rhythm was off. She was spiraling internally, trying to act like nothing happened, while every cell in her body betrayed the truth. Her fingers gripped the glass tighter. Her eyes darted to the exit. Twice. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You see, this wasn't impulsive. This wasn't about revenge or some melodramatic stunt. This was measured. I'd been planning something for weeks. Not because I was certain she was cheating. No, that would have been too easy. It was worse than that. She was erasing me, one memory at a time. I wasn't angry that she lied about the party. I was angry because I'd started to believe that maybe I deserved to be forgotten. But that night, I remembered who I was before her, before I became her accessory, her safe choice, her emotional backup drive. And I didn't want to be that man anymore. So I began writing the note 3 nights ago. I wrote 30 different versions. Some angry, some poetic. One had a quote from a Neruda poem. I laughed at myself for that. But in the end, I settled on the shortest, simplest line. 8 words. It wasn't meant to cause a scene. But I knew her. And I knew those words would detonate inside her, quietly and thoroughly. She started moving now, excusing herself from the circle, giving Weston a glance that he didn't return. Interesting. She walked slowly at first, heading toward the restroom hallway. I could tell she wasn't breathing normally. Not panicking, not yet, but disoriented. Her mask was cracking. And I followed. Not closely, not enough to be seen. I moved through the side corridor, into the gallery room that connected to the women's lounge. The estate was old, filled with carved wood and overpriced abstract art. I remembered walking through this place during a company fundraiser 2 years ago, when I was still invited to things. When she still introduced me as my husband, Norwood, instead of saying nothing at all. I leaned against a pillar and waited. 3 minutes passed, then 5, and then I heard it, the soft thud of a purse hitting the floor, followed by a single, muffled sob. She had opened the note. She had read it. And now, finally, she was alone with her truth. I should have walked away. That was the plan. Drop the message, disappear, let her unravel in peace. But then I heard a voice. A man's voice. It wasn't Weston. And it wasn't a coworker. I stepped closer, my pulse kicking harder in my chest. She wasn't alone in that room. And I had no idea who the hell was in there with her. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the stress, the adrenaline, the weeks of gaslighting had made me paranoid. But then I heard it again. A low voice. Calm, too calm. There was a strange intimacy to it. Not romantic, but familiar. Like someone used to showing up when no one else does. I edged closer to the hallway entrance, careful not to lean too far into view. My heart thudded so loudly I thought it might betray my presence. She didn't scream. She didn't ask what he was doing there. That told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't an accidental encounter. This was planned. Expected. Rehearsed, even. She whispered something I couldn't make out, her tone jagged, like she was trying to contain panic. He responded with a chuckle, not mocking, just weary, like he was used to picking up pieces she dropped. That's when I recognized him. Bryce. Her colleague. The one she insisted was harmless. Married. Quiet. A finance guy who preferred spreadsheets over socializing. I met him once, 3 years ago at a corporate barbecue. He complimented my grilling technique. I remember thinking he looked like the kind of man who ironed his socks. Forgettable, in the safest possible way. Now here he was, inside a side room at a private event, with my wife, while she shook over a message she wasn't supposed to read. I leaned back against the wall, pulse racing, thoughts ricocheting through my skull. I had suspected Weston, the golden-haired showman she always name-dropped when talking about her team. Weston was flashy, egotistical, an easy villain. But Bryce? That felt worse somehow. He was the quiet one. The kind of man who didn't seek attention, which meant she had to have chased him. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I felt something more dangerous. Cold clarity. They weren't talking about the ring or the note. They were talking about me. She knows I'm watching her. I whispered to myself. Maybe not tonight. Maybe not this second. But deep down, she knew it was all slipping. The act. The juggling. The constant need to keep secrets hidden behind curated smiles and half-truths. And now, with Bryce standing in front of her, she didn't have the mental room to deny it. I heard him say, "You need to tell him." She replied quickly, bitterly, "It's too late." That stung, not because I didn't expect it, but because she said it like it was a relief. Then silence. For a moment, I thought they'd left through the other exit. I stepped forward to peek around the corner just in time to see her turn sharply, not toward Bryce, but toward a mirror hanging on the wall. She was staring at her reflection. Her hands were trembling. She didn't look like a villain. She looked like someone about to break down. And still, I didn't move. I thought about walking in and confronting both of them, laying it all out, shaming her, punching him. But something inside me, something colder, quieter, told me that wouldn't give me what I wanted. She expected that. She expected drama, guilt, maybe even forgiveness. No, if I wanted her to feel what I felt for the last year, the slow erosion of meaning, the ache of being unseen, then I had to play this differently. So I left. Not the estate, not yet. Just the hallway. I exited out the kitchen door and found a back stairwell that led to the upstairs office area. I remembered from the fundraiser that Weston kept a gallery room up there, portraits of executives, major clients, and ironically, a large oil painting of a lion above a fake fireplace. That room had a clear view of the lounge below. And there, from above, hidden behind the glass banister, I watched as she re-entered the crowd alone. Bryce was gone. She was smiling again, or trying to. She hugged a coworker. She raised a glass. She even gave Weston a congratulatory cheek kiss that seemed painfully forced. But I saw it, the crack beneath the surface. She was spiraling now. The mask was slipping in places no one but me would recognize. And I knew what I had to do next. I pulled out my phone. I typed a message. Not to her. To Bryce's wife. I stared at Bryce's contact name on my screen, my thumb hovering above it for a long time. I had his number because she once made me call him about a company shipment that accidentally got billed to our personal account. She said he was the only competent one in the finance department. I remember the tone she used that day, playful, almost admiring. I should have paid attention back then, but love makes you blind, or worse, willfully stupid. My heart was thundering, my palms slick against the phone, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of what would happen next. I was done being afraid. His wife's number wasn't hard to find. They'd sent out a Christmas card once, One of those glossy, overly perfect ones with smiling kids and matching sweaters. A quick search through an old email thread gave me her full name. I typed the message slowly, carefully, erasing it twice before sending. You might want to check in with Bryce. He's not where he said he'd be tonight. No names, no accusations, just an open wound waiting for air. When I hit send, a strange calmness spread through me. Not satisfaction. No, something emptier, quieter. Like the silence after a fire burns out. My body was still buzzing, but my thoughts had gone unnaturally still. I pocketed the phone and kept watching from above. Down below, Maribel was unraveling by the minute. Her laugh was too loud now, her gestures too exaggerated. She hugged people she didn't even like, avoided Weston's gaze, then abruptly excused herself again. The crowd hardly noticed, just another executive wife having a little too much champagne. But I saw it all. Every flicker of panic in her eyes, every forced grin, every tiny signal of a woman whose perfect little world was starting to fracture. Then my phone buzzed. Once, twice, then again. I pulled it out slowly, expecting maybe a reply from Bryce's wife, but no, it was her. Maribel, where are you? For words. Neutral on the surface, but loaded underneath. She knew. Maybe she didn't know how I was there or what I'd done, but she felt it. The invisible presence pressing against her nerves. That terrified her more than if I had walked right up to her. I didn't respond. Instead, I slid the phone back into my pocket and watched as she paced toward the entrance hall. The live band started playing something slow, but she didn't even hear it. She just kept walking, almost tripping on her heels as she reached for her coat. I could have stopped her then. Could have stepped out, said her name, watched her mask crumble in real time. But I wasn't finished yet. A security guard opened the door for her, and I watched as she stumbled into the night air. She didn't head toward the parking lot. She walked down the garden path, alone, shaking, clutching that purse like it was holding her last breath. I followed from a distance, my shoes quiet against the stone walkway. The night was cold, and the party noise faded behind us. For a brief moment, it was just us, the broken husband in the shadows and the guilty wife beneath the soft glow of string lights. She reached the far end of the garden where the hedge wall met a small pond. Her reflection shimmered on the dark surface, trembling like it couldn't hold her image steady. She opened the purse again, pulled out the ring and the note, and stared at them under the light. I could see her lips moving, whispering something to herself. Maybe an apology, maybe a curse. Then, without warning, she hurled the note into the water. The ring followed a second later, vanishing with a quiet splash. She stood there for a long time afterward, breathing heavily, gripping the edge of the stone ledge as if she might collapse. I don't know why I said it. Maybe it was impulse. Maybe it was the months of swallowed anger finally finding a voice. But I stepped out from behind the hedge and said, "You missed one." She spun around so fast she nearly lost her balance. Her face went pale, eyes wide, and for the first time in years, I saw pure, unfiltered fear. "Norwood?" She whispered, like saying my name might make me disappear. I took a step closer, my voice calm, too calm. "You threw the ring and the note, but you forgot the truth." She looked at me, eyes wet, hands trembling, and for a moment, I thought she'd finally admit it, everything. But instead, she said something that made my blood run cold. "You don't understand. He wasn't supposed to be here." I froze. "Who?" I asked. She hesitated, glancing over my shoulder toward the shadows near the house. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "Bryce didn't come alone." Her words hit me like ice water to the spine. Bryce didn't come alone. It didn't make sense at first. What did she mean? Was she saying Bryce's wife was here? Another colleague? Or, God help me, was there someone else involved? I studied her face. She wasn't crying, but her expression was fractured in a way I couldn't fully decipher. Her usual tricks, the defensive posture, the evasive eyes, the trembling lip, were gone. This wasn't performance. This was dread. Genuine, choking dread. And it wasn't about me. She took a step toward me, like she was about to reach for my arm, then thought better of it. "You shouldn't be here," she said under her breath, glancing around the garden like we were being watched. "You don't understand what you've done." I narrowed my eyes. "What you've done, Maribel. Let's not forget who threw the first match." She winced. "It's not like that. It's complicated." Complicated. The word everyone uses when they're halfway between betrayal and confession. I'd heard it 1,000 times in her tone, if not her words. But now, there was something else, fear. That's when I noticed the light. A small flicker in the distance. Not from the house, not from the party. A phone screen, maybe, just behind the tree-line. Faint, but deliberate. Someone was holding it still, unmoving. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see the silhouette. Tall. Thin. Not Bryce. Who's that? I asked sharply. Maribel didn't respond. Is that him? I pushed. The real him. She finally looked me in the eyes, and there it was, confirmation. But not the kind I expected. I told him not to come, she whispered. I told him it wasn't safe. That this wasn't the plan. My mouth went dry. What plan? She looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. You shouldn't have left the note. He took it as a threat. He thinks you're going to expose everything. A deep, unnerving pause hung between us, like the world had exhaled and forgotten how to breathe. Maribel, I said, trying to hold on to reason. What are you talking about? Who is he? Before she could answer, the figure stepped forward out of the darkness. Not quickly, not like someone trying to surprise us. He walked with precision, with purpose, like he had waited long enough and decided it was time. He was younger than I expected. Late 20s, maybe. Clean-shaven. Dressed sharp but casual, like he wanted to blend in with professionals without looking like one. His eyes locked onto me the moment he was close enough, and I could tell. He already knew everything about me. I was being measured, assessed, sorted into some internal file system in his head. Maribel stepped between us instinctively. Just leave. Please. Not here. But the man didn't even glance at her. He kept his gaze on me. Then he smiled. Not kindly, but like someone who knew he was 5 moves ahead in a game I hadn't realized I was playing. You're Norwood, he said, voice low and polished. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. He nodded like he was confirming a theory. Then, casually, as if we were at a golf tournament, he said, you should go home. Something in the way he said it didn't sit right. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a warning. It was a dismissal, like I was being told to exit my own life. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not until someone tells me what the hell is going on. He tilted his head slightly. Oh, I think you already know. You just haven't admitted it yet. Then he turned to Maribel and said something that made my blood run cold. Tell him about Santa Rosa. Her whole body went rigid. Her mouth opened like she might argue, but no words came out. Just silence. Heavy. Deafening. I stared at her. What's Santa Rosa? Her lips parted. She shook her head faintly. It was supposed to stay buried. Not anymore, the man said. I looked between the two of them. My wife. This stranger. And the ruins of my life tightening around me. And then my phone buzzed again. A message. From Bryce's wife. I just spoke to Bryce. He says he's not with Maribel. Should I be worried? I looked up and realized I wasn't the only one who had been lied to. My fingers hovered over the screen. I didn't know what to reply to Bryce's wife. I didn't even know what to believe anymore. Every minute peeled away another layer of the lie my marriage had become, and beneath it was something rawer, older, and much more dangerous than I ever imagined. Maribel was still silent. Her eyes darted between me and the man standing behind her. That strange, calculating figure who had materialized out of nowhere and spoke like someone pulling strings no one else could see. I'm going to ask again, I said, my voice lower now. What the hell is Santa Rosa? Her hands were shaking. She took a step back, like she didn't trust herself to speak. I saw something collapse behind her eyes. Not just guilt, but fear. Not fear of being caught. Fear of what might happen now that she was. It wasn't supposed to follow us back here, she finally whispered. I laughed. A cold, hollow thing that didn't sound like me. That's not an answer. The man stepped forward, his expression unreadable. She won't tell you, Norwood. Not properly. She'll try to frame it as a mistake. A bad decision. Some chapter of her life she grew out of. But that's not what it is. He pulled something from his coat pocket. A folded photo. Glossy. A little worn around the edges. He extended it to me like a peace offering. Or evidence. I took it. It was a picture of 3 people standing in front of a red and white sign that read, Santa Rosa Institute. One of them was unmistakably Maribel, younger, with longer hair and a tighter smile. She wore a badge on her chest. The other 2 were men. One I didn't recognize. The third was Bryce. I blinked. The man continued. That was 6 years ago. Before the transfer. Before they changed their names on the internal documents and moved departments. Maribel's lips barely moved. Stop. They weren't just co-workers, Norwood. The man said, eyes fixed on me. They were involved in something experimental. A private research contract buried under a shell company. Behavioral studies, manipulation patterns, testing loyalty thresholds. Bryce was the data architect. She was part of the ethics review team, which is ironic, really, given what happened. I looked at Maribel. What did you do? She looked like she might vomit. It was supposed to be theoretical, she whispered. Models. Simulations. No real subjects. That's what they told us. We were only supposed to assess the framework, not push it into live environments. The man's jaw tightened. They lied to you. Then you lied to everyone else. The air around us felt colder now, like the night itself had turned in on us. I stepped back, trying to put the pieces together. So this was some kind of experiment? And what? You got caught. You covered it up? She shook her head, eyes full of something I'd never seen in her before. Not love, not sadness, but shame so heavy it made her look smaller. They were using real people, not just employees. Families. Couples. We didn't know at first. But once we found out, Bryce wanted to walk. I tried to. Tried to what? I snapped. Tried to make it stop. The man interrupted. But she didn't. Not until it was too late. I looked at him. Who are you? He smiled faintly. I was one of the people in their trial group. They thought I was a compliant subject. Turns out, I remember more than they wanted me to. My mind reeled. So this is blackmail. He laughed softly. No. Blackmail would be too simple. This is something else. He turned to Maribel. This is a reckoning. I looked at her again. My wife, the woman I thought I knew. And now, suddenly, I wasn't sure what kind of life we'd been living for the past 6 years. If our marriage was part of some twisted aftermath, a cleanup project from a collapsed experiment. A shiver rolled through me. I reached into my pocket and took out my phone. I didn't know who I was calling. Maybe Bryce. Maybe a lawyer. Maybe nobody. But when I turned the screen on, I saw a new message. It was from an unknown number. Don't go home. They're already inside. My blood went cold. I stared at the message for a long time. The words seemed to blur together. Don't go home. They're already inside. I couldn't make sense of it. My first instinct was to laugh, but my throat was dry, and a cold panic was creeping up my spine. Who could have sent this? How did they know where I was? How did they even know where I lived? I looked at Maribel, her face ashen under the garden's dim lights. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me, her gaze fixed on something in the distance, her fingers digging into the fabric of her coat. The man, who I still hadn't fully processed as an enemy or something worse, was watching both of us with a steady, calculating stare. His lips twitched into a half-smile, as if he knew exactly what I was thinking. That's not a warning you want to ignore, he said casually, his tone completely at odds with the sudden rise of dread in my chest. What the hell is going on? I asked again, feeling the weight of each word like it was a brick pressing against my ribs. The man didn't answer. Instead, he motioned toward Maribel, who seemed to shrink with every passing second, as though the distance between us was growing wider. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words failed her, leaving her with nothing but the shaking of her hands and the echo of her breath in the cold air. I didn't care about her apologies anymore. I didn't care about the explanations or the years of misplaced trust. What I cared about now was what she had gotten us into, and why the hell she was acting like I wasn't supposed to know. You really don't get it, do you? The man said, stepping forward until he was standing inches from me. This isn't just about Bryce or the Santa Rosa project. This is about everyone they ever touched. They made you a part of it. They made your life their experiment, Norwood. The words hit me harder than anything else he had said so far. It wasn't just about them. It wasn't about Maribel's guilt or her betrayal. It was about a system, one that had been silently manipulating everything in the background. My marriage, my career, my entire existence. The people who think they've escaped, the man continued, his voice getting colder. They're still in it. And they're the ones who are watching you right now. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know if I wanted to hear more. But the part of me that couldn't stop searching for answers, no matter how deep the rabbit hole went, needed to know. Who's watching me? I asked, even though I was almost certain I didn't want to hear the answer. They are, he said, tapping his temple. The people who built this. Who started it? People who think they can control everything. Control people, families, entire lives. Suddenly, the air felt suffocating. My phone buzzed again, cutting through the thick silence. But before I could check it, the man turned sharply, his eyes narrowing. His body language shifted from casual to something much more predatory. "They're close now," he said, his gaze fixed on something behind me. I spun around, half expecting someone to step out of the darkness, but the garden was empty. There was nothing but the rustling of the wind through the trees and the faint hum of the distant party inside. Maribel's voice broke through the tension. "We need to leave. Now." I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since this nightmare started. Her face was drained of all color, her eyes wide and haunted. She was no longer the confident woman who used to hold the reins of every situation. She was shaking, and not just from the cold. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this from me? We could have fought back. We could have." She cut me off, her voice raw. "Because I thought I could fix it. I thought it would stop. I thought I could protect you. I never wanted you involved, Norwood. I never wanted to drag you into this." The finality of her words hit me like a hammer. She didn't care about fixing it. She cared about keeping me out of it. She didn't want me to know. Didn't want me to see her for what she really was. Someone caught up in a dangerous web, too deep to escape. I felt my stomach churn. My own wife had become a participant in whatever this twisted game was. And the man, this ghost who kept speaking in riddles, had just confirmed it. "Maribel, what did they do to you?" I demanded. "What did you agree to?" Her eyes flicked nervously to the man, then back to me. "I didn't agree to anything," she said, voice breaking. "I was trying to fix things. Trying to make it right." I reached out to grab her arm, pulling her toward me. "What things, Maribel? What's going on? Who's in my house?" Her answer came in the form of a sound I'll never forget. A phone ringing from the distance, louder and closer with each passing second. And then, the ground beneath us shook with a loud, distant thud. The ringing phone grew louder with each passing second, until it was no longer distant, but right there, within reach. The ground seemed to pulse beneath me, but I didn't feel the cold anymore. I didn't feel the weight of betrayal or the suffocating knowledge that my life was a farce. All I could focus on was the sound. The phone. Maribel turned to face me, her hands trembling, but she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at the house, eyes wide with panic. I followed her gaze, and then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate steps coming toward us. And then I saw them. 2 men, dressed in black, moving toward the garden, their steps synchronized as if they had rehearsed it. But it wasn't their presence that struck me. It was the fact that, despite the dread that had gripped my heart for days, something shifted in me. I was no longer afraid. I turned back to Maribel, who was standing there, frozen. "We don't have to run anymore," I said quietly. Her eyes flicked to me, her face pale, but I could see something in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was something stronger. Something I hadn't seen in years, resolve. "We're not running," she whispered, more to herself than to me. Before I could ask what she meant, the men were upon us. But instead of grabbing us, instead of pulling us into some dark, bureaucratic hell, they stopped in front of us. They didn't look like agents of some grand conspiracy. They didn't look like the puppeteers I'd imagined. They were ordinary men, tired eyes, unremarkable faces. And they didn't say a word. Maribel stepped forward, her voice steady now. "I'll tell you everything, but on one condition." The men nodded, silent but attentive. "I want out," she said, her voice clear, without a hint of hesitation. "No more deals, no more lies. I'm done. We're done." The tension in the air was palpable, but there was no resistance. One of the men sighed, like he had already expected this. "You've earned that," he said, before turning to the other. The second man nodded in agreement. I wasn't sure what had just happened, but it didn't matter. The phone stopped ringing, the sound fading into the background, and the footsteps, the ones that had haunted me for days, stopped in their tracks. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. Maribel turned to me, her eyes softer now. "You deserve the truth, Norwood. All of it." She reached out, taking my hand. "I've been so lost in trying to fix the mess they made that I forgot what really mattered. I forgot us." For the first time in what felt like forever, I saw the woman I fell in love with. Not the shadow of her, Not the distorted image she'd become under the weight of her own secrets, but the real her. The woman who wasn't afraid to take responsibility for her actions. And in that moment, I realized something important. She wasn't the only one who had been lost. I had too. I had been drowning in my own feelings of betrayal, lost in the echo of a life I thought I knew. But it wasn't too late. We weren't broken beyond repair. Maribel, I said, squeezing her hand. We can rebuild this. We'll figure it out. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. Together. For once, truly together. The two men stepped back, watching us, and without a word, they disappeared into the night, leaving us alone in the quiet garden. The air felt lighter, the pressure of the past few days finally lifting. We didn't need to run. We didn't need to hide from the truth anymore. What mattered was that we had a chance, a real chance, to start fresh.